Okay, guys, good evening and welcome to yet another episode or yet another tutorial. All right, so this time we'll be building a simple calculator web app using ASP.NET MVC framework. So while we're doing that, we'll be touching on a couple of things: constructors, actions, HTTP layouts, creating views, HTTP post attributes, ViewBag, and then exceptions handling. I believe we've touched exceptions handling before, but we're just going to touch it again in this tutorial. So I already built the app. I'm just going to run it. Close.net run. So I'm just going to run it. So let's see what it looks like. What are some of the functionalities and what we expect to build. So this is a tutorial. I created a separate page for it for so that it looks nice and all. So it's supposed to check square roots. Yeah, converts numbers to square roots. I'm going to give it two numbers. It converts them to square roots and then compares their square root to know which one is higher. So if I now put in two identical numbers, two same numbers, it's supposed to tell me that they are equal. Then if I put in a value, if I do not put in a value, it's supposed to tell me to insert a value and then try again. Then if I put in an alphabet, it's supposed to tell me to insert a number instead and try again. So these are some of the functionalities that we're supposed to build with our app. I'm going to close this now. Build with our app. So sorry about the notifications. So these are some of the functionalities that we're going to build with our app. I'm going to be using Visual Studio. So previously, in our other tutorial, we used Visual Studio Code, but this time we're using Visual Studio. I have Visual Studio 2019 installed on my PC, and we're just going to use it so that we know how it works. So I'm going to create a new project. Oh my goodness. Then as you can see, I selected the language as C#, then Windows, and then Web, just to filter down on what I'll be using. So I need the ASP.NET Core web application. I'm going to click Next. I'm going to give it a name, simple calculator. Yep, then create. So it's already in that location. Then I'm going to pick this web application model view controller, that's the MVC application, as against all these other ones. Then I'm going to leave every other setting the way they are, and then create my solution or my folder. Yeah. So we're going to wait, give it a second while Visual Studio opens up the file for us. Yeah, so give it a second, and we are up. Yeah, great. So I believe once you get in here, you're just going to notice these three folders: the controller, the model, and then the view. Hence the name MVC, model view controller. But today we'll be working on the view and the controller. So yep, I'm going to run it quickly. Let's just run it quickly and see what it looks like, what Visual Studio created for me. Um, yeah, it's building. So let's see what we have here. Great. Yeah. So it's coming up through loading. So our web app is going to come up shortly. Great. So this is what we have. Our simple calculator. We have the nav bar, we have the footer, we have the body, and then we have nav links, the home and privacy. So if I go to the privacy page and the home page, they all work. So I'm going to close this now and then show us how it all works. So basically, as you can see from our other app, I created a different page for it that says calculate square roots. So how do I do that? There's this shared folder where we have the layout. So right here, we have everything about our HTML. So we have the HTML and then the footer, then we have the nav bar and the header here. Then I'm going to show you quickly nav bar and the header here. Then we have this part that says render body. So then in our home page, we have the index and the privacy, just as we saw there, but then we don't have the nav bar and then the footer. So this body and this other body is what we're going to be rendering right here in our layout. So everything in here is going to be used by all of our different classes, sorry, all of our different views in the view folder. So in that case, I'm just going to quickly create another list and give it a class of nav link, oh sorry, nav link contact. All right, okay, great. So and then I'm going to give it anchor tag helper. So these are called tag helpers. I'm going to explain that in a second. So then I'm going to give a class of, just like we have it up here, nav, sorry, this is nav link and this is class of nav item. Sorry for that mix up. All right, then text dark. So then ASP area, ASP controller, then ASP action. Action. Great. So I'm going to give it a name calculate, just simple calculate, just for ease, just as we have home and privacy. Just going to give it calculate. So right now we have our layouts set up, but what are all these? The ASP controller, the ASP action, and all that. So great. Right now we're supposed to go to our controllers folder. If you notice, let's go back there. When we say the other ones, when we say ASP controller, it says home, and then when we say ASP action, it says privacy and index. If you go to our controllers folder, we see the home controller. So when we click on home or privacy, it's supposed to take us to this home controller, and then right inside the home controller, you look for the index action or the privacy action. So these are the actions, and then this is the controller, the home controller. Great. So in that case, let us create another controller for a new link. So I'm going to say create new item. I'm going to call it a controller class. Then I'm going to give it a name of calculate controller.cs. Calculate controller.cs. Add. So great. So we have our class here. And as you can see, I'm going to remove this. As you can see, it says this is the namespace, simple calculator, which is this, then controllers, which is this. And then the class is inheriting from controller. That's why we have this. It says our controller class, our calculate controller class should inherit from the controller class, which is gotten from the Microsoft.AspNetCore.MVC file. So if I comment this out, you'll notice a squiggly line under controller to say, oh, the type or namespace name controller could not be found. So that's because we need this using statement. So I'm going to uncomment it out, and then we have that. So now we can use it. Then this is saying that we're supposed to call this when we get. So there's the HTTP attributes of HTTP get that helps us to call this action when we try to get the details from this controller class. So let's say we're going to localhost 5001 slash the controller, which is calculate, slash this index, which we're going to change from index now to calc. That's our action. Then we're trying to get this action, and then we're going to return the view. So let's just try all of this out that we've done. Let's see if we're on the right track. Okay. All right. So it's loading. Awesome. So now we have our calculate link now. If I click on it, it's supposed to throw an error. Oh, okay. I have to close this. We haven't identified the controller and the action in our layout file. So controller is calculate and the action is calculate and the action is what did we say our action is? Calc. So I'm going to remove the I and just leave it at calc. So it's calc, and then we're good, and we're good. So let's run this again. Awesome. So it's loading. Great. Now, if I click on this, it's supposed to throw an error that says invalid operation exception. The view calc was not found. The following locations were searched. So it searched views calculates for this and didn't find it, and it checked views shared for this and also did not find it. So you will notice that we do not have a calculate folder. We have a shared folder, but the calc view is not there, and we do not have a calculate folder. So the shared is just to share file. So we're going to have to create a calculate folder. To create a new folder that's called calculate, and then right inside that folder, I'm going to press Ctrl Shift A to create a razor view. Sorry, and then I'm gonna call it calc.cshtml. Great. So we have a razor view now. I'm going to remove this, then copy from our home page, since we just simply want to create this layout. So great. So I'm going to change the title to calculate page, then welcome. So just calculate square, since we're going to be doing a square root calculator, calculate square roots. Then I'm going to change this to please impute two numbers to find their square roots and highest square roots. Don't know if this makes sense, but let's go with this. So let me see if I can increase this file a bit so that it's clearer. I think that's better. Great. Now let's try it again, just for just to be sure. So let's try this one more time, and let's build our file. And great, awesome. So let's see what we have now. All right, click on calculate. We have this. Awesome. So I'm going to close it and create our form where we're supposed to. Oh, remember I said these are tag helpers. They're called tag helpers, right? Yeah. So right there in our view, there's this view import that's using the simple calculator namespace, then the models namespace, which we've done it. But notice it says add tag helper. So yeah, C# use this to add HTML elements which are called tag helper. So now this is the form tag helper, and we already recognize it from HTML, but then it's going to use different methods. So we're going to use the ASP controller and then go to our calculate controller, then also the ASP dash action, dash action control, ASP dash action, and we'll call it calc, which is what we have up there. Then the method is post. All right, so right in here, we're going to call our input type of text, ASP dash controller calculate, ASP dash action calc, name. I'm gonna give it a first name, and a placeholder. So just for usability, sorry, So just for usability, placeholder of input first number. Okay, so I'm just going to put this in different lines so that it's easy to identify. All right, great. So I'm going to copy this and paste it again for the second number. Then I'm going to call it second number. Second number, not name actually, number. Sorry, number. All right, so then impute second number. Then finally our button of type submit, then calculate. So we have our view ready now, so I'm going to test this out. I'm sorry I keep testing, but that's just to be sure that every step we carry out works. Okay, all right, moving on. Great, so it's loading, and let's see. Awesome, so calculate page, we have our form. So I'm gonna have to put it in the middle. I'm gonna use the text center, the text center style class. Then, so right now, if we try to calculate, it's just going to reload. This page isn't working. Okay, because we're posting and we haven't created our post action yet. So we're going to close this, but before I do anything, let me just put this in the center. So I'm going to put it in a div of class text center so that everything looks nice. All right, and put everything in here. All right, so I'm going to put everything in here. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to cut this to go with it and paste. Awesome, so we have this now and everything looks nice now. All right, so let's create our post action. So basically this already, like I said, does HTTP get attributes right in for us. So when we get it, calls this sorry, that's not it there. I already have it there in here. So when we get it, calls this action. So when we calculate now, we're supposed to create another action for it for the post method. Public action result, then calc, and then so for C# to know that we're calling this other method, we're supposed to put this HTTP post attributes on it so as to let C# know. Then we're supposed to get the parameters from the view. So we have first number and string, second number, string first number and string second number, then return view. All right, so basically this first number and second number is gotten from this place. So we have right here in the form first number and second number, and then we're passing it right into the action to do the calculations for us. So we're supposed to check for a couple of things now. So before then, I'm going to convert this string to a double, because when we're getting the square root is going to come out as doubles. So if we convert it to int, we're just going to have a single whole number, which we don't want. We want the double, so that when we're comparing, we get the actual values. So converting it to double, I'm going to say double first num equals to double dot pass first number. All right, great. So we have this, and then second number. So I'm gonna second number. I'm gonna pass the second number in the second number. Awesome. So we have our numbers now converted to doubles. So the next thing we need to do is check for their square root. So how do we do this? Now we do this. There's a math class that has the square root function in it, or method in it. So this is what we're going to be using. So then I'm going to say double um, first num square root equal to match the square root of first number, which is this one. I'm going to do the same thing for the second number. So I'm going to say second num square root. I'm going to call it, so we're going to pass in second num. Awesome. So now we have our square roots. How then do we pass this back to our view? So we have our square root. We need to calculate a couple of things. How then do we pass it back to our view? So how do we do this? So well, Microsoft.AspNetCore.MVC file has this ViewBag method or property that we can use to pass things to our view. So probably text, numbers, and stuff like that. We can use it to pass stuff to our view. So I'm going to pass all of these parameters, first num, second num, first num square root, and second num square root back to our view, because that's what we'll be doing our checks and passing out statements and all that. We can do that here, but it's just easier if we do that in the view. So I'm going to do this. Okay, so let's just ViewBag dot first. So that's for the first number. So I'm going to pass in first num. Sorry, first num. Yeah. ViewBag dot second. So for the second number, passing second num. Then ViewBag dot first square root, passing first num square roots, then ViewBag dot second square roots, passing second num square roots. Awesome. So now we're passing all of this to the ViewBag, which you can use in our view. All right, so let's just take this again. We get the parameters from our view, convert them to doubles, check for the square roots, and then we're passing our values back to the view. So right back in the view, we can now do our different checks. So I'm going to use this C# escape syntax. We can use to pass in C#, syntax to our view. So we're going to check if. So what are we supposed to check now? If we go back to our controller, we want to check if this and this, if they are not null. So we want to check if this is not null and ViewBag dot second square root is not null. Awesome. So what we're checking is, after doing all of our calculation and storing it in this ViewBag, does this ViewBag have a property? So if there's a property, that means not null, then show what is inside of this place. So now if there is a property, we're supposed to check for the for which is higher than the other. So I'm going to say, but before then, let me see. So I'm going to say div class text center h3. So I'm going to pass in all of them. So let's see what we have. This, as this, as and as. So just passing in all of them to see if they have values and what the values are. And this also. So let's just check. So we're going to pass in values, numbers. I'm going to check if they have values and what the values are. And then after the calculation, if they are going to return values. I'm sorry, my camera is not bright. It's late and my lights also is not bright. So please bear with me. So I'm going to pass in 4 and 4. Let's see. 2, 2, 4, 4. So the square root of 4 and 4 is 2, 2. And then, so let's just try something else. 33 and 3. Yeah, so we have doubles now. This, then 33 and 3. So our values are now being passed to the screen. So now let's do our checks. So I'm going to just do this. Okay, close, so that we can work on our, okay. So I'm going to do our checks now. So I'm going to check if this ViewBag, so if the first square root is greater than the second square root, what do we want to do? All right, so then another check we want to do, let's do this first. Else if, so else if is the second is greater than the first. Then do this. Then else if third, if they are both equal, they are both equal. So equal, do this. All right. So what do we want to do? Let's check our code. I'm going to start this, and let's see what we want to do. Okay. Okay. So okay, it's already running here. So I'm just going to work on it. So let's just say 4 and 6. So we want to pass this message to the screen. I'm just going to copy the message so I don't type all of it. Then I can close this. All right. Yeah. Okay, so if this is greater than this, then H3, did we make this a text center? Okay, great. So H3, I'm going to give it a class of text success, just to give it a color green. Then pass this in. Too long. Okay, so just enter, 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 enter. Okay, so that's just to make it easy. It's throwing an error. These elements represent headings for their sections. Okay. So I think we need a C# escape somewhere here. Okay. Let me close this first. I don't need that anymore. Then close the other one right here. Okay, now we're good. So if this is greater than this, then we need to say, oh, I needed that. Okay, so let me just get it from here. We need to say first, ViewBag first, which is the first number. This C# escape character, yes. Then the square roots, which is this. So I'm gonna pass that here. Then as a higher value than this. So I'm going to put that as second, right? Am I right? Second. Awesome. Then I'm going to pass this in. Awesome. So for the, okay, yeah, awesome. Okay, great. So now I'm just going to indent this inside so make it look nicer. Copy this and put it here, and then indent again and indent. So just to make it look nicer. So now this time we're checking for the second. If the second is greater than the first, we have to say the second is greater than the first, then change this to first square root and change this to second square root. Awesome. Now, third place. Why does it keep going back? I have to indent this all of the time. All right, let's do this. Awesome. Okay, so now when they are equal, we're going to say the first with square roots is equal to, with square root this is equal as the higher square root with a number. It's equal to the number. Okay, so I'm going to say it's equal to the number is equal to the number this with square root this. And then let's just put in a paragraph that says try a different number. So class success also, text success, not secondary, success. So it says please close that. Please try a different number. All right. Awesome. So let's try this out and see what we have. Let me indent this also inside just to make it look nicer. Awesome. Okay, so let's run this and see what we have. Build started. All right, so okay, it's loading. All right, calculate page, and let's try this 4 and 4. Hopefully it works. What do we have here? Numbers equal, numbers equal, and blah blah blah. Let's see what we have wrong somewhere. We have something wrong somewhere here. We're checking this. This is okay. So let me put in a C# escape character here and put all of these ifs inside of it. Let's see what happens. Okay, and now inside of here, put this in here, and let's see what happens now. Run. It's loading. Calculate. Yeah, yeah. Oh, great. We're working now. So let's say 34 and 4. 34 as a higher number. Then 4 and 4. Good. So everything is working. So let's say 5 and 10. 10 as a higher number. So it doesn't matter where you put the higher number, works, calculate it. So now let's see. Let's say we have a user who wants to try to be smart and say, oh, I want to see if a negative number has a higher number than a positive number and all that. So let's see what happens. Oh, great. Nothing happened. Great. So we want to treat this, want to undo this, want to send a message that says, oh, we want you to impute a positive number when someone tries this. So let's just go back in there. So I'm going to close this for now. All right, so going back to our con controller, what we have to do is do a check if statement. So now we're going to say, let me just do int dot parse of first number. So I'm using int this time because I'm not converting. So we're expecting whole number. So we could just say int dot parse first number. If it's lesser than 0, so if the first number that's entered is lesser than 0, that's we have a negative number. Or int dot parse second number if it's lesser than 0. So if either the first number or the second number is lesser than 0, we want to use the ViewBag also to send a message. ViewBag dot neg number, neg num error. All right, so we're going to say what we want to say now in our message. We want to say, please impute a positive number. So I'm going to put this in caps, caps, caps all the way for the first character. All right. So now we're passing this to the view. Now we want to use this to show the error. So let's go back to our view again. Just the same, we're going to go down again and check if not null. So if ViewBag num error is not null, so that's if there's a message in it, what I want to do is want to put a div of, oh my god, text center. Let's see if it works. Oh no, it doesn't work, so I'm going to just do it manually. Div class text center, then h2 of class. So I'm going to give it a text danger class. That's an error. So it's just going to be read and say out num error. Great. So let's try this out. Let's see if it treats that mistake by our user. Awesome. So it's up. Let's see. So if our user decides to put in a negative number, calculate what happens. We're going to say 4 and negative 4. Please impute a positive number. 4 and negative 10 or 109. Please impute a positive number. So we've handled that. Now let's say a user decides to, can you see that? It says system argument null exception, value cannot be null. So what did our user do? Our user tries to calculate without a value. So it's that error. So I'm just going to jump over that. Let's see, can you see that? Argument null exception. So let's go back, or let's say our user so let me stop debugging. Okay, it's closed. So, or let's say, let me just treat both of them, the two other errors I can think of. So now the user tries to calculate without a value. What happens? It crashes the program. Or the user tries to calculate with an alphabet, the alphabet E. What happens? Crashes the program again and says system.format exception. So let me just close that and show how we can handle something like this. So let's now, okay, we're still at the controller. So now what we need to do is use the try catch block. Can you see this? Try catch block. We've treated this before, but we're going to do it again just to be clear. So we could do the try catch block and then try all of our codes. So if there's an error in our codes, then it goes to the exception. So we're trying to handle exceptions now. Goes to the exception and tries to handle it. So we could do it this way by just catching the exception or catching all of the exceptions at once. But it's better to just catch a specific exception because in that way you might decide to use it for something else. So the first exception was the argument, argument, null exception. Then the second exception, so I'm going to catch the second one, was a format exception. So now we're catching both exceptions. So I'm going to store them in a string. I'm going to store the exception message in a string. So empty value error ex.message. Then come here and call this alphabet error ex the message. So I'm storing both in a string. Then I can decide to pass the error to this. Actually, it's advisable to inform the user what we want them to do when they do something like that. So I'm going to say error message empty. So I'm just going to pass this to the screen. I'm going to say please input a number and try again. So then here ViewBag ViewBag dot alphabet error. I'm just going to call alph error. Names are messing me up here. Okay, so I'm going to say yeah, I'm going to say please input numbers only. Try again. All right. So, but before I, pass this into, there are other ways you can do your validation with your your view. So we can decide to, change our view. So for the one that requires a value, we could just put in required here, and that would make, required, and that will make our file, force our user to, put a value. So that's just validation using the view, which is okay, but you also want to validate with your constructor also. So now I say for and I calculate, it tells me please fill this form. So now the form is already validating to tell the user you have to do this. Then if I also want to do the part where I want the user to put in only number, I can also do that from here by saying the type should be number. So now we could do a validation with our view, mind you, just not to forget that. So let's say you're a front-end engineer or front-end web developer and you want to validate using your view, you can do that by forcing the user to impute the value you want them to use. So if I go to calculate and say 4, it tells me do this. If I try to put in E, it tells me please enter a number. So this is validation from the view. But then I want to also validate using my controller. So I'm just going to change all of this, right? So you can also decide to use both validations also. But now these are my view bags. So we're trying and we're catching. So I'm going to use this first. So go back to my view, then right underneath it, I'm going to do this just as we've been doing. If error empty message is not equal null, then what do we want to do? We want to create a div that has a class of text center just to make everything looks nice. Text center, then an h3. We're supposed to make this h3. Yeah. So then an h3 of class text danger. Awesome. So then we're passing this into that. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. Then we'll just copy the ViewBag down here. Okay, copy. Okay, so we'll just copy the ViewBag half error. Come here and paste that here. ViewBag here and here. Awesome. So now let's write our code using our validation from um, our controller. So you can use any of the validations that you choose, the view validation or the controller validation. They both work, but it's better to, I feel it's better to validate from your controller because that's like your last resort before crashing. So let's see. Please input a number and try again. Same thing. Please input a number and try again. Please input a number and try again. But what if I say, okay, E catches that also? Please input numbers only. Try again. E and 4. Please input numbers only. Try again. So I believe we've touched on everything. Oh my word, square root spelling here is wrong. So I'm just gonna have to do that for some sake. Where is that? Where do we have that? Squares. All right, great. So I believe we've touched everything that we're supposed to start with. I'm not sure I showed this at the beginning. So we're supposed to touch on constructors, actions, layouts, creating views, HTTP post attributes, ViewBag, and exception handling. Great. So I believe we've touched on all this. If you do have any question, you can reach me on contacteghosa@gmail.com. I would really appreciate your message and questions. Thank you very much for listening. You have a lovely day.